Alright, so we have our vertex color here ready, which will be really helpful when we go inside Substance Painter. And we need to export out all of our meshes here, so we could put it inside Substance. And remember that we have also have the normal maps that we have exported out of Blender. So we have the MB face body, which is going to be the normal map details for the face and the body. And we have the MB outfit, which is going to be the normal map for the outfit, right? The folds and everything, shirt and pants. So we are going to also put those in Substance. So first thing first, let's go ahead and export out our mesh. So you can see that we have individual parts here, which is fine. Just go ahead and select all of your meshes, your shirt, your holster, everything here. Do not select the lights or the camera, any of those, okay? And then let's just go to File, Export, FBX file, okay? And this is very important that you choose Turn on Selected Objects. That way, Blender's not going to export out the cameras or the lights. We only need the meshes that we have selected. So, Selected Objects. And then, go ahead and name it whatever you want. I already have a name for it. MB Mesh is what I named it. So after you export that out, now we could go open up Substance Painter. So loading this up, if you don't have Substance Painter, you could get a free trial, which is going to give you 30 days free trial, I believe. And you really do not need more than 2 weeks at all to do what we're doing here for this course. Because with Substance Painter, everything is there for you. We're going to be using a lot of smart materials, adjusting its settings to get our realistic look to match our character. So you don't really need more than 2 weeks, really. Maybe if you have used Substance Painter before and you created already a lot of projects on it, maybe you're only going to take a week to do this. But yeah, at the most, probably 2 weeks. And yeah, go ahead and download that free trial. And then once you open up that Substance Painter software, just go to File, New, and very important that you set the template to Unreal Engine 4 starter assets, because we are going to be using Unreal Engine. And then on the file here, we have to select the mesh that we have exported out, the FBX file. Remember that? Just click on select, and I named it MB_mesh. And for the document resolution, let's set it to 4096, because remember our maps is going to be 4K textures, 4096. And another very, very important thing, make sure you don't forget to do this. For the normal map format, since we are using Blender, and when we export out our normal map, it is OpenGL. The normal map is in OpenGL format. Make sure you set it to OpenGL. If you don't set it to OpenGL, guess what? The normal map is not going to look right when you put it in Substance Painter. All right. So depending on what software you're using, if you're using 3ds Max, I believe that's DirectX. But if you're using Blender, OpenGL. And go ahead and press OK. And just wait for a bit as it loads. And there you go. And if we gonna zoom in here, you can see that you might see it's a little bit long, the face, because we have to change the focal length for the camera to better match what we have in Blender. So to change the focal length here, we can go to if you hover your mouse here, you have display settings, shader settings, painting mode, and log. Okay, so if you go to the display settings here, okay, click on it, you're going to see the camera settings. Just go ahead and scroll down, and then you're going to see field of view and focal length. So you could change this up. So maybe I could crank up if I bring down the focal length, you could see that it start to get more warped. It looks like the face is getting more deformed. If you crank up the focal length a little bit higher, and then you kind of zoom out, you see you could definitely see more of his ears and his overall shape of his face. So we need the focal length to be a little higher. So I suggest you guys mess around with the focal length there and look at the photo of what you're trying to match up with. Look at a photo of your celebrity or your likeness and try to match up the focal length with what you have there on your photo. So if I crank it all the way up, you would notice that you could see more and more of the background. You could see more and more of the overall shape of his face here. And it's really not what I want. So I'm going to maybe set it to maybe 40. And if I zoom in, okay. Maybe I can set it to 35. I'm going to set it to 35. All right, so I think that's better. Okay, and if you guys look at the texture list set here, if you don't see the texture list set, just go to the windows here. If you're missing any of the tabs, this is where you're going to find it in the window menu. And then you go to views here, and then you're going to check on texture set list. So whenever you're missing any windows here, maybe I'm talking about the texture set settings, properties, any of those, you could find it here in the windows area. Or if you're missing any of the tools here, either the top or on the left side, windows, just go to windows, toolbars, and you could look at the settings here and go and turn it on, and that might be just something that you might be missing. And you could always reset the UI if you need to. All right, and one thing that I need you to take a look at is here, right, on the texture set list. Remember that we have created different materials for some of the parts for our character. So for the Carankle, if you recall in Blender, right, if I go and select my Carankle, which is the inner corner wet part right here, let me see this one right here, and if I go to my material, you see Carankle material is assigned to it. So that means if you go inside Substance Painter, we have the Carankle texture set right there in its own. And if you go ahead and click on the eyeball, you could turn it off and turn it on to hide that mesh. Okay, and then if we go look at our eyeball here, so that right there, we have a material called eyeball. So that material is assigned to the eyeball. So we could turn it off, turn it on, and then head arms. So this is based on the material that we have added inside Blender. All right, so if we go ahead and turn it off and turn it on, the head and arms is going to be the head, of course, and also the arm area. And if you look at Blender, that's the name of the material. So each of the material that we have created in Blender is being created inside Substance Painter as a texture set list there on the texture set list. And just keep that in mind. You're going to be able to turn it off and turn it on and hide your meshes as you need to. All right. And you could also drag this down. Oh, there's something here called topology color. I'm curious what that is. Okay, so that is, that's going to be, that's for the, so it looks like I have applied, yeah, okay, so I need to make sure that the tear duct here, the tear duct material is also applied on the top part of the mesh right here for the tear duct. So if you kind of missed that area, don't worry. I'm going to go ahead and select this mesh right there. So let's say you kind of messed up. Maybe you need to kind of add some materials and organize some materials. That's fine. This is how you're going to do it. So it's impossible that you're not going to go back to Blender. There might be some things that you miss, but I'll show you how to re-import your mesh in case you need to go back to Blender and fix a few things. But yeah, let's say for this one here, I didn't add the right material. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the topology color, remove that eye test, and I'm going to set it to tear duct, yes. So that's going to be the same texture set as the bottom part. So this bottom mesh right there is tear duct, and same for this. All right, so now since I made some changes, I'm going to go and select everything. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and export as an FBX again. Selected objects, I'm going to replace that FBX file with a new one. And then if you have made changes, you could re-import it here easily. All you have to do is go to Edit and Re-import Mesh, and then it will go ahead and re-import everything. As you can see now, this is grayed out. You can see the topology color. Texture set is grayed out because this is no longer being used. I only have the tear duct. So now if I go ahead and hide this eyeball tear duct, it's hiding both the top and the bottom, which is exactly what we need. All right. So I want you guys to just familiarize yourself with what you have here. Turn it off, turn it on, the eyeball, so you could see exactly which part is which for your meshes, okay? All right, now, how do we add the normal map here? Because as you can see, right, there's really no details. The high resolution details that we have created, it is not here, right? So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and import our normal map here, okay? So to import our normal map, just go to File, Import Resources, and then click on Add Resources, and go ahead and find the folder where you have your textures. So I have it here. It's called MB Face Body, MB_outfit. Okay, and I'm gonna press Open. And this is very important that for each of these, you have to define what type of texture, what type of map this is. So click on Undefined. So it's either alpha, color, LUT, or environment texture. Let's set it to texture and set it to texture. And then for your import your resources to set it to your project. That way you don't have to keep on re-importing this, and then it will go on to your project every time you open your Substance Painter file. So right here, and then click on import. And so now we see it here, our normal map. Now, before we start assigning this to, we're going to be assigning this to our texture set where we have our head and arms, and we're also going to be assigning to our outfit, because we have one for our outfit, which is going to go to the outfit texture set, and we have one for our MB Face Body, which is going to go for the head and arms texture set. Before we do all that, it's best that we bake this first, bake our maps so that it will create an ambient occlusion for us. It will create some thickness map for us. It will create all these. If you go to texture set settings, it will create all of these maps that you see here: base color, height, roughness. So all of these right here, the mesh maps. If you scroll down, you're gonna see that there's a bake mesh maps. Ooh, that's a little too large there, buddy. So this is a little too small there, buddy. So this right here, bake mesh maps, we're gonna need to click that. That way it will create some normal maps, ID maps for us, curvature map. All of these maps, it will be created when we click on bake mesh maps, okay? Now, of course, we're gonna be replacing the normal map with the normal maps that we have here, okay? But the rest of this, we want to have Substance Painter created for us. So let's go ahead and click on Bake Mesh Maps under Texture Set Settings tab, Bake Mesh Maps. And then before you do anything with baking the selected textures, before you do all that, okay, there's a few things we have to do here. First, for the output size, make sure that you set it to 4K textures, 4096. And then for our ID, click on ID here. For the color source, we need to set it to vertex color, because remember, we have in our blender, we have used vertex color for this. So in order for us to use some ID maps here, it needs to be what we had created for Blender, vertex color, very important. All right, and then for the ambient occlusion, so this is going to be the shadows that's going to be dropped around the areas that, like, for example, like this right here, we have this right here, and then it's probably going to create a shadow around this area where the holster meets up with the shirt here. So the ambient occlusion is going to create all those shadows around the areas where the meshes are interacting with each other to make our character pop out more, or around the areas that has a lot of depth, like the eyes and then the nose area. It's going to create some subtle shadows. All right, so what we need to do for the ambient occlusion is we don't want the shadow to spread out too far. We kind of want to tighten it. So for the max occluder distance, I do like to bring it down a tad bit. So it's the shadows are not going to be spread out as much, and the spread angle, I need to bring it down a tad bit right there. All right, so once that's done, we go ahead and click on Bake Selected Textures and just wait for a bit as it bakes. So I'm going to pause this video and get back to you guys after this is done. I just want to let you know that you're going to be able to see how far along the baking is. If you look at this green right here, you can see it's moving. So once this goes all the way to the right, that means it's done. Alright guys, so this is done baking. Let's click on return to painting mode as you see here. Click on that. And now, if we go to our material area here, you're going to see the drop down arrow. So now, if we go and click on normal here, right now we don't see anything much because we have not plugged in our own normal map there. Blender, Substance Painter just created its own normal map. But if we go click on ID, you see on the ID map that we have here now matches the one that we have in Blender. Okay, so now we're going to be able to assign materials on each color, any materials that we want, and any specific color. So you could see all of your maps by going here and just taking a look at them. We have the curvature map, we have opacity, and bent normals, and world space here. All of these maps here will influence how the textures will be applied to your character. So we also have our base color. Right now we don't have any base color. Height map, roughness map. So we don't have any of those yet, but we will be doing that as soon as we start creating our textures for our character and start painting our character. But once you go to each of these and you just kind of mess around with this, you could press M on your keyboard and you're back to where you are by seeing the material of the character. Now, how do you plug in our normal map here that we have imported in here? So remember, we have a normal map for our head and body. We have a normal map for our outfit. So let's go ahead and plug in the one that we have for our face and body. So let's go to our texture set list. Make sure you're selecting the right texture set where you want your normal map to go to. So this is going to be the head and arms where I want the MB face body normal map to go to. So with that selected and then going to texture set settings, we could go ahead and drag our normal map details that we have done for our face and our head and arms. We're going to go ahead and plug it in onto right there. Okay, so to do that, go ahead and click and drag and just go ahead and drop it right here. Okay, and once you do that, you should notice that our details are there. If you go ahead and kind of zoom in, you could see the wrinkles, you could see the pores on our skin. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for our shirt and our pants. So our outfit don't really have any details right now. Okay, so let's go to our outfit texture set. So make sure you choose the right one. So go ahead and go to the outfit texture set. And then remember, our normal map outfit is called MB outfit. We could click, hold, and drag it and drop it onto the normal map slot right there. So let's go ahead and click, hold, and drag right here. Okay, and just wait for a bit and you will notice a difference here. So if you might not see it after you drop it, then just go ahead and navigate in Substance Painter. Alright, so you could see, very nice, our details are showing up as needed, right? Okay, so that is our normal map. Very nice. And if you want to go ahead and change your lighting here, your HDRI, you could go to your display settings here. And then, sorry, I think it's in, yeah. So if you want to go ahead and change your displays, you want to change your HDRI here, maybe you want to have a different environment reflecting this character, you go to the display settings and then go to your environment settings here. There's going to be 3 tabs. You have the environment, camera, and then you have this one right here. It's called viewport settings. But yeah, we just need to go to our environment here. So for the environment map, by default, it's set to panorama. So if you click on here, we could change up the type of lighting here anytime. So let's say I set it to Bonifacio, right? And you want to go ahead and rotate the environment. Maybe you want to change how the shadow look. So there's the environment exposure. I usually leave that alone. You don't want to make it too exposed. You don't want it too bright. The blur, environment blur, you could blur the background. And right now, you don't really see the background, right? So if you want to show the background, just go to the environment opacity, and you could click and drag it all the way up to 100. And you can see that the background is there. And right now, I think the environment is blurred. So if you don't want the environment to be blurred, you could drag it to the left. So you could drag it to the left, and it's no longer blurred, and it looks like it's in a real world environment. And I usually do not want the environment opacity to show. So I don't want the environment. It's just very distracting when I'm painting. So I like to leave it at 0. But yeah, but let me go and crank this up for now. You could actually mess around with the environment rotation, and you could see based on the environment rotation is changing where the shadow is at. So yeah, you could go ahead and mess around and see what type of environment here that you would like. Now, if you are painting, it's best to use an environment that's not going to give you different hues and different colors on the character, because you want this to be as accurate as possible. So when you are just beginning to light, I suggest you use any of these black and white HDRI images, okay, instead of using the ones that are colored. That way you could better see exactly what type of color you're using. So maybe if I use Studio 0.6, all right, so I think this is a good one. And let me mess around with the environment rotation. Yeah, I think I'll use this one. But yeah, feel free to mess around with the different black and whites here. And then later on, after you're done painting, it's fine. You could mess around with the different environments that have colors in them. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the environment opacity. I don't want to see that. Cool. And we could go ahead, if you're done messing around with the display setting, go ahead and just turn that off right there.